Now, Gardaí in Dublin have launched a clampdown on people parking in disabled spots without proper parking badges. Disability campaigners say they're increasingly frustrated by the numbers of people parking illegally in wheelchair spaces. I'm joined by Sergeant Peter Woods from the Roads Policing at Dublin Castle and by Senator John Dolan, the Chief Executive of the Disability Federation of Ireland. And Sergeant Woods, I've often looked longingly at those well-positioned disabled spots, especially when parking spaces are at a premium. But how much abuse is going on?
Hi Mary, how are you? Unfortunately, there is a considerable amount of abuse at the moment, possibly as a result of increased volumes of traffic in the city centre over the last couple of years, and also the ongoing construction works such as the Lewis Cross City, etc. So as you say, on-street city parking is at a premium, and a consequence of that is unfortunately an increase in the instances of illegal parking and also unauthorised use of the disabled permits themselves.
I gather you have an issue with people using fake parking permits.
Yeah, and that's what our operation today was about. Operation Enable is a multi-agency initiative we came up with in conjunction with our colleagues in Dublin City Council, Dublin Street Parking Services, and the two associations that represent disabled motorists, the Disabled Drivers Association of Ireland and the Irish Wheelchair Association. And we had an operation today targeting not just illegal parking in the disabled bays, but also unauthorised use of the permits themselves. And we ended up seizing 11 permits in operation in the city centre for a variety of offences. We seized permits, for example, from people who are no longer living. We seized permits that were forged, photocopied permits. There's all kinds of abuse out there, unfortunately, at the moment.
Yeah, and does it require? Is that a big job of policing? I mean, have you got to go around and check the permit on each car? It's real foot slog.
Well, this morning's operation we used plainclothes members, and we stopped people in areas that we had targeted over the last couple of weeks. Working with our colleagues in Dublin Street Parking Services, we identified areas of the city where there seemed to be an unusually large number of disabled permits, not in bays themselves, but in regular parking spaces. So we had members in plainclothes working this morning, meeting people as they arrived to park for work, and we found out that a lot of the permits were being misused.
Are you going to keep it up?
Well, judging on the success of today's operation, it is something that we will probably replicate in the future.
And what happens to those caught?
Well, each case will be decided on its merits. When you misuse a permit, or if you forge or copy a permit, then you're moving away, obviously, from simple road traffic parking offences into the realms of fraud and theft, criminal offences. So they carry quite substantial penalties on indictment.
And prosecutions would follow, or will prosecutions follow from today?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be doing files for the DPP on a number of the cases today, and we'll be hoping to proceed in court.
All right, Sergeant Woods, thank you very much for joining us. Senator John Dolan, Chief Executive of the Disability Federation of Ireland, is also with us. It's a really mean thing to do, isn't it, John Dolan, for an able-bodied driver to use a disabled spot?
I was struck by what you said. I have often looked longingly, but you resist, and I think we have to be fair to people and who actually do the right thing, and that's all the more reason. That's another reason for bringing what I'll describe maybe as a heavy hand down on people who abuse. And Sergeant Woods there particularly talked about the unauthorised use of the card. That is fraud, and I think it's very good that has clearly been a part of it. But imagine finding 11 in one day. Yeah. Okay, it's in the city centre. So there is, and the more point that was made there earlier as well, the more pressure comes on parking in the city centre or in any town. It's like there's pressure everywhere for parking now. And the point I'd make for people with disabilities or people with mobility impairments is they need the comfort of knowing that when they set out to go to town or to go whatever to do, that they have a more than reasonable chance to be able to get parking. If the parking, if the disabled parking bays themselves are used up by other disabled people, well, they're in the same position that anyone else is in. Of course,
but it's the abuse.
But they should have a clear go. And the other thing I'd say that the Dublin City Council and local authorities around the country have been very good working with the organisations and people and trying to find the most useful places and that. And I think it is very good then that you have that partnership between the local authority and the guards to actually, like if one authority, if the local authority is going making them available, and if they're being abused, should that destroys the whole thing.
Do people get abusive if they're found out?
Sorry?
Do people get abusive if they're found out?
Some people do. Some people do. I think it's no different than people who react, road rage and things like that. Some people can be quite courteous and embarrassed if they've wrongly used the badge. That's a different thing. But if somebody goes into a space, often you get people say, I was only running in for a minute, but that annoys the hell out of people.
Of course, because it means the disabled driver can't park. John, I want to ask you very quickly about something else. You're saying with the bus air and axing of the Clonmel to Dublin and Dublin Airport service that the private services don't have disabled access.
Well, the private operator in this instance does not have accessible coaches.
So
route.
if I'm in Clonmel with a disability, I have no way of getting to Dublin Airport if I'm dependent on public transport.
Mobility impaired, you're now not travelling as a result of that decision. And what's really upsetting about it and frightening about it is the government has a policy to make life better for people with disabilities, the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And we're frustrated enough that they're not clocking on with that, but here you have a decision that involves the Department of Transport, the National Transport Authority, actually it would seem to me, not actually being aware that they should have been, let me say it, policing this, making sure.
Well, you've certainly made them aware now. We've got to leave it there. Senator John Dolan, Chief Executive of the Disability Federation of Ireland, thank you very much. And finally,